Unlike most people who never leave the house, I'm not really a big fan of anime. Unless we're talking about this, and this. It'll have me on the couch, like... Not to bash anyone who really likes anime, each to their own, you know. My brother's been watching One Piece since middle school, and he's on the road to getting married. But the tropes, man, the tropes. I would prefer injecting ketamine into my eyeballs and putting on a 10-hour loop of Obey the Walrus to willingly give myself paranoid schizophrenia over watching 1 second of this fucking trite. The way the pacing is always... The way the protagonist always ends up with a harem and can't stop spontaneously falling on every pair of tits within a 20-kilometer radius. The way dubs always sound stilted and a bit unnatural, but whenever someone walks in on me watching subbed, they look at me like I'm watching porn. The way that characters are always strictly either in high school or around the time of adolescence, like that's the only time in life that'll ever fucking matter for some reason. Every protagonist has a case of dead or missing parentitis, portraying every female character with an annoyingly high-pitched voice whilst making them act in a way that makes me want to punch them in the fucking head. It all just gets to me. And this goes especially when the tropes of anime gets transferred into video games.
You owe me a pizza.
Could not get this shit further away from me. Don't get me wrong, the greatest games in the whole world come from Japan. FromSoft, Capcom, Sega, and Nintendo, among others, can prove that easily. It's just when the tropes of anime begin to seep into my favourite medium is when I usually lose interest. Games like these rely on the story, world, and characters to keep you playing, but when every world feels empty and lacks interactability, the characters are all cliches, and the story is a 100-hour convoluted mess of plot spaghetti, I just can't keep playing. Plus, I've always resonated with an overused quote from Doom developer John Carmack, in that the story of a video game is like the story in porn. It's expected to be there, but overall, not that important. So when a game like Corpse Party comes along, a chapter-based linear RPG maker anime-style role-playing game packing every cliche in the book, you'd think I'd set it on fire before letting it anywhere near my PlayStation. But this game really stood out to me in that I became extremely attached to the story, world, and characters. You've got the self-insert protagonist who's fawned over by every playable girl in the cast, and yes, this includes his own fucking sister, a trope which I absolutely despise, and which we'll be getting into later. Plus, they all have voices higher than dog whistles with tits that defy biology. But I don't know, despite all that, I couldn't stop playing until I saw the end, and even then I continued with all the extra chapters and even the Platinum Trophy. That's because the game has such an amazing hook for a story. It grabs such a simple premise of escape the haunted school and builds on it with so many neat little ideas, as well as character development and continuous world building of the school and its lore. I went from rolling my eyes at the opening to legitimately being invested by the end of chapter 1 when they throw an absolute curveball at you. It takes balls to set up a character like Seiko, someone who'd serve as the much needed comic relief from all the grime and despair of Heavenly Hosts. Establishing that she is essentially the only reason that Naomi doesn't lose hope and give up on survival and succumb to the grim reality of her situation. They show her family life, showing how she's the motherly figure of her family ever since her own mother passed away. They show her being supportive of Naomi and her love for Satoshi, despite being in love with Naomi herself. They show all these things that only make you care for and wish for a safe return home more and more, only to rip it all away in the most tragic kind of death that could possibly befit a person exuding such warmth and positivity, leaving you with nothing but the wails of her best friend and the elusive chapter end as you simmer in the events that just occurred. The world of Heavenly Host does wonders in delivering that terrible but alluring feeling of hopelessness. The bones of literal children litter the hallways of the school, only increasing in density with the progression of each chapter as you piece together each demise of every 13 to 18-year-old you find. The victim's memoirs enhance this as you find detailed descriptions that always surround very relatable stories of loss and desperation that really make you question, what the fuck would I do in a situation like this? Would I just wander around aimlessly for a way out? Would I give up straight away? Or would I try and hurt others in a desperate attempt to help myself survive? Who knows? But it's definitely a compelling question to explore, and the game explores it well. This goes especially for the victim's memoirs in Chapter 2. As you're exploring with Yoshiki and Shinozaki, you begin to find the memoirs of a victim who out of desperation ate their best friend for sustenance. And after reading a few of these, you begin seeking them out more than the way out itself, just out of pure morbid curiosity of what might happen next. And upon reading them all, you're greeted with the most gruesome, sadistic twist of fate fucking ever, as it's revealed that you were the one writing the memoirs all along, as the half-eaten body of Shinozaki is laid strewn across the Heavenly Host floorboards, with this eerie note to boot. This is as good a time as any to mention that the voice acting is phenomenal. Some of the best I've ever heard. Some real standout performances being Shiki Yoshida as Yoshiki Kishinuma, Asami Imai as Ayumi Shinozaki, and especially Taira Kikumoto as the principal of Heavenly Host, Takamine Yanagihori.
毎晩夢に出てきやがって、こんなに私が罪を悔いているのに、どこまで私を苦しめるんだ!
Not only is the performance of every cast member believable, they are oftentimes spine-tingling, a perfect example of which is during the opening of Chapter 3, where you're introduced to a group of students from another school, but you can only see their character models in front of a black background as the game leaves you with just your imagination to piece together what's going on as the voice actors work their magic. This, in tandem with its amazing soundtrack, does wonders in giving a heavy sense of atmosphere and character to a bunch of pixel sprites on a 2D canvas. Seriously, I don't know how they do it, but in the combination of all these factors, it makes being chased down the hallway by a sprite of a ghost child absolutely bone-chilling, most likely due to the fact that if you get caught, the character you've grown a great fondness for gets mutilated in the most traumatizingly twisted ways imaginable, giving you quite the incentive not to get anywhere near them. But unlike every other game ever made that discourage you from taking the wrong path by making you repeat things you've already done as punishment for being bad at the game, Corpse Party actively encourages it. The title screen menu lists every possible wrong end you can get in each chapter, leaving you with a sense of unfulfillment when the game rubs in your face that you haven't seen them all. In this way, Corpse Party rewards you for your morbid curiosity of travelling the path less followed, with branching plot lines and unseen character developments that deepen your love and understanding of the characters and game world. Only when you fuck up as Yoshiki awakening and getting caught by the mannequin in the science labs does he shine in one of his greatest moments as a character, in which he sacrifices himself for the sake of Ayumi, giving her a chance to escape. This also gives you an extra chapter following the events of this ending, where Yoshiki says his final goodbyes, telling her he'll always be looking out for her in spirit form. A little white lie, giving Ayumi that extra push she needed to gain the courage to escape Heavenly Host by herself. Plus, the game sprinkles candles you can save your game at all throughout Heavenly Host like candy, so even if you do get a wrong end accidentally, you're probably only losing a minute or so of progress. But what is Heavenly Host? Why are we here in the first place? Well, we can all point our fingers at Ayumi, as during a stormy night after school, a remaining group of 7 students are loitering after dark to tell some ghost stories, as one final memory for parting school friend Mayu Suzumoto. Upon being told they need to leave by their teacher Miss Yui, Ayumi insists that they all try out a little charm she found on the internet that would guarantee that they would all stay best friends forever. So upon performing the ritual and ripping apart a creepy paper doll, they begin to fall through the floor and into another dimension, containing Heavenly Host Elementary School, a place thought to be demolished in 1975. That's right, this shit was the backrooms before the backrooms was even wearing diapers. Now, being that the game is set in 2008, this immediately doesn't sit right with our protagonists, and panic begins to ensue as they come to realize that each group of friends is contained in their own separate pocket dimension of the school, as well as the grim reality that upon death in Heavenly Host, the soul is permanently tortured with the initial pain of death for all eternity. In that sense, making getting a wrong end or seeing the death of a friend all the more impactful. The concept of death in Corpse Party is stretched and experimented on with so many twists and turns. The dead both torment and comfort the living, punishing their sins and giving guidance during times of need. Morishige, the least liked member of the group, turns out to be a complete weirdo. As a way to cope with the trauma of Heavenly Host, he disrespects the dead by taking pictures of them and tugging his willy whenever he feels a bit stressed out at all that's going on. And at the beginning of the 5th chapter, you catch him getting hot and steamy over a pile of giblets that you will very much recognize as Mayu Suzumoto, a poetic revelation in that he is both in love with her and serves as his only motivation for survival in the first place. So as he proceeds to unknowingly fawn over the corpse of his only friend, he receives a call on his cell phone.
なんだ着信しているのに写メ画像のままだ着信表示も出ていないあ音だけが鳴っている壊れたから携帯の OS が
私の内臓深淵に
The school specializes in giving its victims the most torturous fates possible on both a physical and emotional level. It reminds me a lot of Twisted Metal, where after finishing the tournament, the winner says to Calypso, "I want to model on the world's biggest runway." And he's like, "The world's biggest runway, eh?" And he puts her on an airport runway and she gets fucking folded by an airplane. Every character dies or is punished based on their own emotional needs and desires. An unknown amount of time after Naomi loses her best friend and realizes that she's all alone in Heavenly Host, she gets a call from an unknown number, and taking any kind of social interaction that she can get, she answers the phone and is tormented by the voice of her mother, begging for her to come home, whilst every response from Naomi falls on deaf ears.
返事をして。ねえ。お母さん？お母さん？お母さん！私だよ！今、大変なことになって。ナオミ！声を聞かせて。お願い。何か喋って。お母さんよ。ナオミ！神様！あの子も、無事に。
助けてくれ。
聖子、もういや、誰か助けて。
It does an amazing job of making you lose hope along with the cast as you continue to play, only for the faint hope that it doesn't end horribly for all of them. You delve deeper and deeper into Heavenly Host, revealing more and more of what makes the place tick, uncovering both the kidnapping incident of 1975 and the murder of Yoshi and Sachiko Shinozaki in 1953, and which served as the first link in the long chain of events that created Heavenly Host, being that the vengeful spirit of Sachiko created this realm, kidnapping and killing innocent children in a twisted showcase of love for a dead mother, so that she wouldn't be lonely in the spirit realm.
Oh my god! Wow!
The way people behave in this game, I must say, it's a bit
counterproductive!
Sometimes it feels like just blatant violence for the sake of violence, like the writers are just trying to give fan service to the weird kids in school that fantasize about doing this sort of thing to the popular kids.
Oh yeah, some good shit right here.
Which brings me to a part of the game that makes it difficult to suggest to other people. There's a vibe here that's a bit...
What is that? What the fuck is that?
The perverted nature of it all, it's a serious ick. Like, did they really need to give a panty shot to the 7-year-old girl getting fucking strangled to death? Or the 16-year-old girl having a mental breakdown? Or giving Satoshi a little sister who literally wants to fuck him? Like, why? Fucking why did they feel the need to include this? It doesn't improve the experience or make it any more scary. It's just fucking cringe. It's a cheap tactic used by writers who lack confidence in their own storytelling abilities and feel the need to throw in this trite to keep us invested. Like, it's treating their audience like they're a bunch of filthy coomers, which actually isn't too far from the truth. Now, after the immense success of the initial release of this revamped version of Corpse Party, you'd think the devs would say, nah, we don't need to degrade our work by putting this in anymore. We know our fans like it. But nope. Instead, they went all in, fucking balls deep on that shit from what I've seen from the sequels. Artistic integrity be fucking gone. But it doesn't really matter though. I don't think I'd ever played the sequels anyway. The true ending to Corpse Party is so fulfilling, with that satisfaction that all these characters you've come to know and truly care about, all with their own developed character flaws and strengths. Big shout out to Yoshiki for being the best character in the game, by the way. I love him so much. Finally make it out in the end, but there's that looming cloud that they'll never get to see Mayu, Seiko, or Miss Yui again, only to give that final stinging twinge that not only will they never get to see their friends again, but everyone back home has had their memories of those who didn't make it back from Heavenly Host wiped from existence, so they don't even have the privilege to mourn their dead friends with other people who knew them. But it feels like the perfect end to a game with a tone such as Corpse Party, and I feel like adding more to it would be like when you're at Subway and you ask for some lettuce on your sandwich, and they put in the perfect amount only to cram in another fucking 7 handfuls, so all you can taste in your meatball sub is fucking lettuce, so you peg it full pelt at the minimum wage Subway employee's head, and now you're serving 3 years in prison for assault charges. You know what I mean? Like, it's good. I'm all good. Like, I'm happy with how it ended. I don't need any more, so I'll just leave it there. From what I've seen in the extra chapters where you have to find the missing top hat of a toilet ghost and play as a literal zoomer from 2021 trying to go viral by Twitch streaming herself doing the Sachiko charm, and going to heavenly hosts, I think playing the sequels would just put a bad taste in my mouth. So with that being said, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I really hope you consider subscribing to the channel if you'd like to see more content from yours truly, because, you know, going to bed at night knowing that I now have 23 subscribers as opposed to 22 would prove once and for all that yes, I am finally enough. Anyways, cheers boys.